I hope yesterday we stopped at this particular slide, isn't it? Right? Anybody can
Yes,
confirm?
yes, yes.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So if you can see this picture is very interesting picture, that is talking about the alarming situation. And mostly what happens that the people ignore about the mental problem, about the mental, stress. They simply ignore. I mean, yeah, it's manageable and we do not care. But when it is accumulated, it creates a lot of problem in the human health, especially the mental health. So this is the diagram is about that. This is a paper from IEEE. I have given you the link. And as far as the mental health is concerned, and how is cognitive science is connected with the mental health. I mean, I just want to ask one question to all of you. That when I was going through that in your country, Italy, what are the mindfulness practices these days? I could see in Europe a lot of mindfulness practices are, adopted by the people for good mental health. Are you aware about any mindfulness practices in your country? Does anybody of you do some mindfulness? Hope you understand what is the meaning of mindfulness. Mindfulness means think about present. We are not able to focus onto something. Think about the present. The present may be an object, present may be a person, present may be anything. So that is mindfulness practice. Anybody knows about mindfulness? Anybody? Any kind of mindfulness practice anybody does?
I can think of meditation and journaling, maybe,
Okay,
and
yeah, yeah.
yoga,
Meditation is the
perhaps.
example. Yeah, yeah. Please, meditation is a good example of mindfulness. I mean, in Italy, how much people? Any idea that people do meditation? Do the people do meditation there?
Probably not.
Is it not popular there?
I have no clue. In my circle of friends, we don't do meditation. We don't do journaling. So I can
Okay,
talk
okay.
for a little group of people.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, I mean, especially I can tell you one thing after COVID-19, this pandemic, Corona, I mean, people started realizing that yes, mindfulness is a powerful tool, especially for the mental health. And I can tell you that I don't know whether you are aware, if you read literature, if you search literature, there are a lot of people who will say that hack your brain and you to get rid of pain, hack your brain. I mean, many people are there who do mindfulness practices and they get relieved of pain. They don't, I mean, feel any pain in their body because their attention is somewhere else. Believe me, that is true. So that is kind of mindfulness practices. So when you say that, what I'm trying to tell you is mindfulness is related to cognitive science. Why I'm saying is because if you remember what, how did I define cognitive science? Cognitive science is a study of mind. So if mindfulness practice is related to mind, so it's application of cognitive science. That's what I'm trying to say. As far as mental health is concerned, it includes number of factors: behavior, your emotions, physical activities, perception, your sensing ability, your thinking or cognitive ability, signaling, being responsive and reacting to the environment. You come across stimuli. I have already defined what is stimuli. So if you come across certain stimuli, how do you react to the stimuli? If you see a horror movie, how do you react? I mean, just let us understand. You watch a horror movie, you watch a funny movie, you watch different types of pictures. How do you react? Your mind, your brain reacts in a different manner because there are different parts of your brain that reacts in a different way. And therefore, please remember the stimuli is responded by brain in a different manner, and this is why the mind is not that simple thing. Mind is, if you can remember, I was telling you that mind is the dynamic nature of brain. Mind is dynamic nature of brain, and brain is very complex organ, right? So emerging area of research is there in the area of mental health using the cognitive science concept to deal with different types of mental disorders, mental disabilities, the brain computer interface, and other applications of cognitive science are very popularly used. That's what I'm trying to tell you here in this slide. This is one, I don't know, you may not like this, but in India it is very popular. Very popular. The you were mentioning about the meditation. You can see my own picture, and this is the research lab. Where we have collaborated. I have already provided the link of this research lab. I hope that you remember or you know about a city in India. That city is an IT city in India called as Bangalore. Bangalore is an IT hub in India. All global IT companies, their headquarters, their big centers are there in Bangalore. So this research center is there for as a mental health research center, the biomedical research center in one of the center. We have collaborated. So this picture is from there. You can see that there are different equipments. The person is doing some kind of mindfulness, some breathing practice. I did some some breathing practice, and we recorded EEG signal. You look at, I am wearing one EEG cap, and if you remember, this picture was included in the website that yesterday I opened in front of you. So we were trying to do some community wellness work, applying the concept of cognitive science and using the meditation technique. The idea was to study the impact of yoga, meditation. I hope at least you have heard about yoga. These days, if you go to Instagram, yoga has also become very popular all across the world, not only in India. You see, any country in India, a lot of people, the celebrities, a lot of young people, young girls, young boys, they have started doing yoga. And I believe me that yoga has a tremendous power. I'm not here to tell you the benefit of yoga here. What I'm trying to tell you that if you do some yoga practice, it impacts your brain, it impacts the sleep quality, it impacts different factors of mental health. So we got a funded project, a research project, and we did some work where what did we do? We studied the impact of yoga and meditation on mental well-being, consciousness, and sleep quality. Sleep quality, right? What is the sleep quality when you do meditation? And by the way, if you are aware about meditation, there are different types of meditation. I'm not saying that there is only one way. There are 100 different ways of meditation, country to country, place to place, people to people. They'll do different types of meditation. So maybe some people in Italy maybe doing some kind of meditation. And if you ask those people, if you ask question to those people, are they getting benefit of meditation? Hopefully, many of them will say yes. So my work, our team work was, my own team in my previous organization, previous research project, we were studying the quality of sleep. And also we were trying to improve the community well-being through AI intervention. Now, what is this AI intervention? We'll cover very soon, right? I mean, one is to acquire the EEG signal. Yesterday, somebody was asking a very relevant question, Professor. Is this research all about asking questions to many people, doing some survey? Of course, that is a part of this research. You ask many people. I mean, do you do some practice? Do you not do any practice? Do you have any difficulty? Do you have any mental problem? Do you get benefit of meditation? Do you get benefit of silence? Silence is one type of meditation. You make yourself silent for 10 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minute, 10 minute. It's a kind of meditation. Meditation is nothing but a kind of mindfulness practice. So what I'm trying to say, that where is AI intervention? One is capturing the data through survey and questionnaire. Second is to analyze that data with some brain signal, some kind of brain signal, and applying AI ML model. So we implemented AI ML model. We implemented different models of neural network, especially the deep neural network. Because see, if you use the ordinary neural network, it doesn't work. You understand the reason? Because when you capture signal from your brain, there is a huge dimensionality, and therefore you need a model that can work, well with the large amount of data. So we used all deep learning models. I will also give the examples of deep learning models when we talk about the practical results in the next day's presentation. And we also tried to study the cognitive ability and impact of yoga and mindfulness practices. Now you might be wondering about this, what is cognitive ability? If you google about cognitive ability of pilots, mental stress of pilots, those who are flying their aeroplanes for long time, do they go some do they undergo to some stress? How is their cognitive ability affected? You will find research papers, and those research papers do not only talk about Indian practices or Indian meditation. No, there are a lot of research even American people are doing. I have seen a meditation data. The data was captured in India, but researched by the American researchers. I'll give you the link. There is a very popular data of the different types of meditation, and the study was made by the American researchers whether the meditations impact our human health, especially the mental health. So if you search on stress, if you search on cognitive ability, if you search on different impact on mental health using the cognitive science concept, using the brain computer interface, using some EEG or other brain signal, you will definitely find literature. So the laboratories where we have collaborated, they have a lot of facilities. Psychophysiology lab they have, cognitive neuroscience laboratory they have, psychology and bioenergy lab they have. I mean, bioenergy picture is not included here. They'll take some, use your fingertip, and they will record your bioenergy. And when you are doing some different kinds of activities, how much change is there in the brain energy? Does brain energy change? I'm sorry, bioenergy. Does bioenergy change? All those factors are considered. So now hopefully you have you got your response. That yesterday we were discussing about your question, that it's not only based on survey or questionnaire, rather it includes the signal, scientific signal, and scientifically it is explained and interpreted. So we will take the practical example. Generally, in these type of research, what is called as brain computer interface, what are the major steps, particularly in this research? When we studied the impact of meditation, impact of mindfulness, what was the approach? I'll explain you what was the approach. Imagine what may be the first approach. The first approach will be obviously what? Capturing the signal, data acquiring. And if you remember, when you want to work with human subject, I think I've already explained you. Whenever you want to work with human subject, even if you want to work with animals, any living organs, you need to have ethical clearance. So the ethical clearance, what do we mean by protocols? What do we mean by ethical clearance? I will cover in next lecture. Today, I'll just start with image acquisition. Otherwise, remember, it is not that easy. You cannot ask a person, come here, I want to record your EEG. No, you have to get ethical clearance, you have to submit your protocol, you have to submit all the documents related to consent of a person, whether the person is ready to do this not. You have to tell the persons what are the harms, what are the disadvantages, what are the probable risk involved in capturing the data. Then only ethical clearance will come. And once ethically you get the clearance, you can start your research. So I will not explain about those things now. I'll start directly with the collection of data set. So you can collect the data related to EEG, related to sleep, related to bioenergy. In our case, we captured the sleep, data related to sleep, and that too the data was EEG data. And then what is the process? This is subjected to well-defined ethical clearance approval. What is the next stage? Next stage is the complete analysis, that how the brain attributes change for different persons through yoga and mindfulness. So what do we do? You capture EEG signal when somebody is sleeping, and you capture from 100 persons or 50 persons. We did for 27 persons. And then how do you do that? You get the brain attributes. Brain attributes means what? Brain signal attributes. Brain signal attribute means what? It's not only direct alpha beta gamma theta. You have to You have to bring those alpha, beta, theta, gamma into your computer. EEG is entered in, EEG is, stored inside your computer. Use any programming language, decompose the EEG signal. I have explained in my previous talk. Decompose the signal, and after decomposing the signal, alpha, beta, gamma, those are not features. Remember, there are different features that you have to talk about, and those attributes and features will be, the parameters. On that basis, you can differentiate one person from other person. So that is generally the practice. But where is the role of AI? As I mentioned, AI intervention. So what do? We use suitable AI ML models, and we try to classify those signals. We try to classify those persons in terms of the attributes. So when you want to use a deep learning model, when you want to use a neural network model, what is needed? What is the requirement of a neural network model? What is the requirement of deep learning model? Can anybody answer? If I want to, use a deep neural network, deep learning for my project, for my work, what is the requirement of deep learning model? Any idea what is the requirement of deep learning model? Buddy, it has to require the, it has to have the data, isn't it? It requires data. But then in the deep learning model, you can directly give the data, or what you can do, the attributes. How do you get attributes? You recorded the brain signal. Remember, it's not only EEG. It may be functional MRI, it may be PET, it may be CT scan, it may be MEG, it may be EEG, any signal. So signal is not directly sent to the deep learning model. Hope you know about this thing. It may be any application of deep learning model. It may be a speech recognition, it may be, sentiment analysis, it may be, face recognition, it may be fingerprint matching, it may be EEG recording, ECG recording, and so on. The data is not directly fed to the deep learning model. What do? You extract the attributes, and those attributes are subjected to the deep neural network. So therefore I am saying, how do you classify and how do you monitor stress, sleep quality, concentration, mind wandering of different subjects? In the last lecture, I told you, what do you mean by subject? A person who is involved in experiment, the person who is involved in the subject, in the experimentation, in the study, is called a subject. So from different subjects, you have captured the brain signals, you have got their attributes, and those attributes are subjected to deep neural network, AI ML model, and then you are able to classify whether they are undergoing some stress, whether their sleep quality is better or not. I mean, this is very interesting application of the brain signal. And this particular part is from my own research, our own project that we have already done in the past, right? And this is generally a typical model. This is a general purpose diagram. It is not the actual diagram. This block diagram has been taken from a, one of the source IEEE paper, isn't it? So this is generally a typical workflow. What do? You capture any EEG signal, and then you extract the features, and features, data pre-processing. You pre-process the data, that is raw data, and then you extract the features. Once you extract the features, you can do one more thing. This is the meaning of modality fusion. What is the meaning of modality fusion? What is the modality fusion? Sometimes what happens that you can also use multimodal. What is the meaning of multimodal? Suppose you are interested to combine EEG and MEG. Suppose you are interested to combine EEG with CT scan. You are interested to combine EEG and functional MRI. So in that case, you can extract two types of modalities, two types of signals from a same person, and you can combine. And then those features are subjected to a model, and then your study may be based on to classify autism, alcohol addiction, bipolar disorder, dementia, major depressive disorder, any kind of stress disorder, suicidal risk. All these things can be done. So the application interface will have these things like screening, diagnosis, monitoring, treatment, prevention, self management. All these can be provided in the user interface of the healthcare. So this is particularly, the first one is related to data collection. The second is related to data integration. Third one is related to model used. And the last one is related to the applications. All right. So how do we study the brain activities? This diagram is not new. This diagram is, you just see one example, very interesting example. How do we study? Suppose we capture EEG signal and then we pre-process. I have already explained you why do we pre-process, and then as I mentioned that we will decompose the signal alpha, theta, beta, delta, beta. And if you remember my last lecture, every component of EEG signal has an application. I mean, if you are interested to study about critical thinking of a person, if a person is solving, if a person is doing something, if a person is solving complex problems, does his critical thinking ability increase by certain practices? If you want to study, you will have to consider certain components. You may not all you cannot always use theta component. When is theta used? I have already explained in my previous lecture. Theta and delta. Theta and delta, they are used generally when you are interested in studying about restfulness, sleep, dream state. In the similar manner, all these components are having their own importance. So after pre-processing, you will decompose the signal, you will extract the features. One of the feature which is mentioned here is a power spectral density. I hope almost all of you are aware about this power spectral density. It's a very important parameter, a very important signal feature in the field of signal processing. When you capture a signal, you can extract number of features: mean, variance, standard deviation, average value, and so on. So power spectral density is a very, very important feature, especially for EEG signal. And then what do you do? That you can do statistical analysis and you can interpret that these are the different activities. So when you want to when you want to study some brain activities, what you can do, you get the brain signal, you pre-process, remove the noise, reduce the noise, extract the features, and on the basis of extracting the features, you can interpret the signal. So one such paper, which is a very interesting paper that we implemented, right? I will just explain very quickly. This was the paper we implemented. I mean, it was already implemented. We modified this paper. There was one research paper. I have given the link here. There was a research paper. It talks about impact of learning when the persons are attending online lecture, MOOC lectures. They are attending some online lectures, like right now you are attending my online lectures, and see, you are attending my 3 lectures online mode, and you may be attending other lectures in offline mode. You can yourself find some difference. When this professor was teaching online, now we are attending offline. I mean, is there any change in the learning level? That's what you are learning. So this research paper was about learning, the level of learning, how much learning impact, how the learning is impacted when the people are attending online lectures. So what this research talks about, it included delta, theta, alpha and beta and gamma components, and then it extracted the power spectrum density, and then some methods were used. And the level of, what was also calculated in this paper, the level of confusion. Suppose you are attending an online lecture, right? And during an online lecture, whether a person is confused, not able to understand, that was also assessed in this particular paper. So EEG signal was used, and the accuracy of confusion level determination was 78.6%. Means what? The level of confusion determination, they were able to find out the level of confusion in participants to 78.6%. Similarly, as far as the prediction level of confusion, what is the level of confusion? One is whether the people are confused or not. Second is what is the level of confusion. So level of confusion was also assessed, and the accuracy was 68%. Accuracy of a student is confused or 73 point. So what we did is we used LSTM in our model. LSTM, that the model, it gave 73.3% of accuracy, whether the student was confused or not. And we tested the same work with SVM. Almost same accuracy was found, almost 73.1% accuracy was found, but the reduced time. So the processing time that was required for almost same accuracy was a little less. So I hope you understand, whenever we do research based on signal processing, what is important is accuracy, but what is another important factor is how much is the processing time. So we implemented this work and the processing time was reduced, right? So that's all about this research paper. And then you can go to the link and see that paper. This paper is not lengthy paper. It's a very I think it is of just 4 or 5 pages. It has not done much. It has only studied the learning impact and the level of confusion in the people, those who are attending online lectures, and that's all, right? And it has not used any, what I can say, 62, 64 or 32 channel device. It has probably used one headband where 2 to 3 electrodes are only there. So from 2 to 3 points, it has captured the brain signal, and that is EEG signal. And the EEG signal was decomposed in terms of delta, theta, alpha, and everything. So I have not, included all the pictures, all the results here. I've already given the link of this paper where you can go and see the paper and understand, yeah, that is an interesting application of brain signal analysis. So I have already told you that there is one technique called as invasive technique, there is a technique called as non-invasive. So as far as the EEG is concerned, it's purely non-invasive. You just wear like structure like this, and you look at here. Just here I'm just pointing the laser pointer. Here you see the sensors are connected, and these holes are the slots which are open, and through these open spaces the sensors are inserted, these electrodes are inserted, and this is the structure of the cap is called as montages. The way the configuration is done is called as montages. And look at those electrodes which are connected. They are connected with wires, and those wires are connected through some cable, and this cable goes to your computer. You can use some Wi-Fi device with the help of Bluetooth or Wi-Fi device, wireless device. It can be stored inside your laptop or stored inside your computer. And once the data which is collected from the EEG is inside the computer, inside your computing device, you can use any model, AI/ML model, and you can apply signal processing and interpret the signal, classify the signal. So EEG is a non-invasive technique used to monitor and analyze the brainwave activities. It measures the voltage fluctuations in the brain caused by ionic current within the brain's neurons. EEG records the spontaneous electrical activities. It is record it. What does it do? Is spontaneous electrical activities. When you do something, suppose you start crying, you start laughing, you start doing some activity. Suddenly, EEG will, immediately, spontaneously, EEG will record that activity of the brain over a certain amount of period. If you record for 10 second, 20 second, 30 second, 1 minute, during that particular period, is specified period, given the time period, it will record EEG signal. And this technique probably, this was included in the comparison. It's cheaper, easy to use and work, and this is a portable device you can carry anywhere, and no risk of scar tissue or tissue damage in the human brain, because you're not doing any surgery. You're not putting any needle inside, you're not doing any surgery, not even minor surgery, and therefore it doesn't cause any scar, it doesn't damage any tissues, and therefore it is purely non-invasive in nature. And this is why the researchers use this modality, these kind of BCI, very, very popularly. Suppose you just Google, you just search the brain computer interface, any common topic, research topic, just enter the keyword brain computer interface. The papers that you download, in 90% of those papers, the signal which is used is EEG signal, because it's very, very, very commonly, popularly used. Because of these factors, it does not have any risk, it is very cheap, it is easy to use and work, and it is portable, doesn't cause any damage, and this is why it's very popular. Of course, It has a very low spatial resolution and captures the weaker signals because of obstruction of the skull. Your skull is there, your skull, is there, and therefore, there is an interface, and your hairs are there. So your those things act as a obstruction. So you do not get very strong signal. You get weaker signal. And why the spatial resolution is poor? What do you mean by spatial resolution? The spatial resolution is nothing but the distance between 2 points. So you see here, your sensor is put over the scalp, but your brain exactly is inside your head. So there is a distance between these two. And if it is very close, your spatial resolution will be higher. There are two types of resolution which are used in the brain signal processing. One is spatial resolution, second is temporal resolution. Temporal resolution is related with time, how much time it takes to capture the signal very accurately. So we are talking about spatial resolution. It is not very high in EEG, but it's not very strong signal. But if the sensor quality, electrode qualities are very good, then you will get the level of signal that can be interpreted by the AIML model. So that is what we do. Other BCI models are partially invasive. Partially invasive, I have already explained you. If you remember, this is a technique called as ECOG, electrocardiogram. Electrocardiogram is a technique where you just insert a small chip a little inside, just put your cover of your head and just put an IC, integrated circuit, or a chip. This is called as partially invasive. So no major surgery is used. You do not go deeper inside the brain. So this is called as partially invasive. Now if you ask me a question, is there any benefit of this particular modality, that is ECOG, electrocardiogram? The answer is spatial resolution is better than the EEG. But remember, it may not be used very popularly for research. Why? There is a surgery involved. So you have to involve physicians, the surgeons who can do surgery, and the ethical clearance that will be required for this research will not be simpler. Because suppose you want to do research with EEG signal, the ethical clearance can be given by a team of professors in your university. But whenever you are going for partially invasive or fully invasive, you need to include doctors. You need to have a medical ethical clearance committee that can only allow you to do the research. So for this partially invasive and fully invasive, it's not very easy to do the research because surgery is involved, and it is very risky also. What is another thing is, it's very risky. It may harm the person, it may be harmful, it may damage the tissues, it may damage the brain, and there is always risk involved. This is why these things are like invasive. You look at here, where a complete, you see here a hole is created in the brain. Hope you can see a hole here, right? There is a hole, and this through hole, this particular electrode is inserted. Can you see a hole here in a brain? Can you see a hole here, a rectangular hole here? Yeah, can you see a hole? Somebody wants to
Yes,
respond?
yes, we can see.
Yeah, somebody has to quickly respond because I wanted you to be on page. Otherwise, you are joining online, so you have to be in same frequency with me, and so that I'll also be happy that yeah, you are understanding. So you see here, this is an electrode, and see the depth of the electrode. It is just put inside the brain, and the closer it is to brain, it will get stronger the signal. So the strongest signal is obtained through the invasive technique, and it can record the activities of even single neuron. Remember, not single neuron, because billions of neurons are there. So what we record through EEG signal, that signal is the response of millions of response. Is it records the response of a group of neurons. That group may have millions of neurons, whereas this particular technology, it can record the behavior of a group of neurons, a small group of neurons. So at individual level, how does a neuron, how does a neuron behave? How does a group of 5 neurons behave? How does a group of 10 neurons behave? That kind of study is also made by using invasive technique. It is clinically long-term applications are associated. It allows severely paralyzed. I have told you, you can take this risk only when a person is severely paralyzed by brain to regain some autonomy and increase the quality of life. So what you will do, the person is almost, is paralyzed by his brain or by her brain. So you'll get his consent that even if he dies during the surgery, during this process, the risk will be taken by the person himself or herself. Therefore, in any surgery, you have seen that in any surgery, the person has to write the declaration. If something happens to a person, the responsibility will not be to the doctor. Responsibility is owned by the person himself or herself. So, but therefore, in the severe case, this particular thing is used. It requires medical professional guidance. You, as a researcher, you cannot do this. Medical professional guidance is required, and the patient needs to undergo surgery to implant a sensor or the electrode in the brain. Purely inside the brain, you need to implant a sensor. What are the benefits of BCI? It can convert passive devices into smart and active ones, like prosthetics, like robotic arms, wheelchair kind of applications. It enables communications using sensory motor rhythms called as SMR, sensory motor rhythms. I mean, you can create some rhythms using sensory motor signal. It helps regaining motor control in paralyzed patients. You can understand BCI enabled vehicle to avoid accidents. Trains, it can train elderly people's motor and cognitive abilities to counteract the effects of aging, like there are disease related to dementia, Parkinson's. Because of that, the person has lost the cognitive ability, the movement ability, that could be recovered to some extent by using the BCI. And I have used this term again and again in my lectures: neuro rehabilitation. It helps the people whose neuromuscular functions are impaired by trauma or disease and relearn the useful motor functions. Yesterday, if you recall, I was giving example of phobia, fear. So those are psychological disorders or some kind of impairment that has happened inside the brain, and some disability and disorder has occurred. So that could be also recovered by using the neuro rehabilitation technique. So these are the different benefits of BCI. In the last lecture yesterday, I told you that after discussing about the EEG signal or brain signal, we will talk about BCI. How does it work? What is BCI? What are different types of BCI? And what are the scopes of using BCI? So we are, trying to complete that particular, discussion on the BCI today. What are the future perspective research in the brain science? Globally, many companies are working to introduce some BCI models. There are a lot of research going on so that it can benefit many people, large amount of people, those who are suffering with disabilities and paralysis. These are the companies who are working. Emotive, you can see here. Neuroelectric is also here. Yes, I have used two companies who are yeah, many companies are there who are working in the area of brain computer interface. So two have already used. Emotive device you have seen in this slide itself. And then neuroelectric is the device which I have used in my own research. So there are different companies who are working, who are trying to do a lot of research, trying to investigate, trying to do more and more research so that good findings can help to develop good products, good products that can help the people, those people who are suffering with brain disorder and disability. This is bidirectional BCI. I hope this also has been already covered. Bidirectional means you can also create the stimulated, you can record the signal, you can amplify the signal, and then you can generate some feedback signal as a stimulator. So it's a closed loop and therefore it is bidirectional. Or you can also control some external devices using some, with the help of some commands which are generated. So BCI may be, active BCI, passive BCI, invasive BCI, non-invasive BCI, partially invasive BCI, similarly bidirectional BCI also. It may be unidirectional BCI also. If you do not include this feedback path, you are just doing one-sided, operation, then it will be unidirectional BCI. For example, you are capturing EEG signal, analyzing the EEG signal and classifying. So this is one way. It's not two way. But in this particular example, the diagram which is here is the bidirectional BCI. This is about nervous system. We need to understand how, the nervous system plays important role. I mean, connected to the brain. Yesterday there was a picture, yesterday or day before yesterday, hope you remember. There is a central nervous system, there is a peripheral nervous system. So peripheral nervous system is your cranial nerves, autonomic nervous system, ganglia here, and then spinal nerves, spinal nerves, spinal cords. All these are external peripheral, which are all combined together called as peripheral nervous system. And something which is connected to brain, and sometimes spinal cord is very near to brain. These two constitute a system called as central nervous system. So central nervous system and peripheral nervous system are connected with interface. Central nervous system responds to the events outside the world by producing output that serve the needs of the organism. Right? How does it respond to the events? You know that the central nervous system receives the stimuli. And what are those stimuli? Stimuli are received through sensory organs. So those sensors capture the stimuli with the help of central nervous system. Central nervous system understands those signals which are captured through stimuli, and they interpret, and accordingly your peripheral nervous system work. If you want to operate your right hand, how can you control your brain? Until and unless your brain allows, you will not move your right hand. And this is what is the relation between peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. So everything is connected with your brain. This measures CNS activity and converts into artificial output. Artificial output can be used to replace, to restore, to enhance, to supplement, to improve. All these aspects we have covered in the previous lecture, that it has the ability to replace, it has an ability to restore, enhance, supplement, or improve. So everything is covered in the, and the control by central nervous system, because central nervous system has the most important part called as brain. There are some terminologies which are also frequently used related to brain computer interface. There is a term called as visual evoked potential, very popular term called as VEP, visual evoked potential. Now if you read these carefully, you understand the meaning of visual evoked potential yourself. What is the meaning of visually evoked potential? If you see something, if you watch something, and that causes, that evokes some electrical potential, which is generated by the signal, brain signal. So that is called as visual evoked potential. It is recorded from scalp. So it's a kind of EEG signal. Remember, it's a kind of EEG signal that is recorded from scalp over a visual cortex to determine the visual cortex. Where is the visual cortex, and which is impacted by this particular signal? Probably your occipital area and visual cortex. To determine the direction of eye gaze, where you are gazing, how you are watching the things, where is the direction of your gaze, and determine the direction in which user wants to move a cursor. So when you are interested to move the cursor, when you're interested to move your direction of eyes, all these can be studied by using visual evoked potential, a signal called as VEP. I'm just telling you the some terminology. So there is one more term called as dependent and independent BCI, were introduced in year 2002. Dependent BCI and independent BCI. In accord with basic BCI definition, both use brain signals. Whether it is dependent BCI or independent BCI, brain signals are used to control the applications, but they differ, both of them differ in their dependence on natural CNS output. So we'll not discuss much in this particular time about what is dependent and what is independent. Dependent BCI uses brain signals that depend on muscle activities. BCI uses amplitude of VEP. What is VEP? visual evoked potential. So when you record VEP, visual evoked potential, it will have certain amplitude and it will have certain frequency. So as far as dependent BCI is concerned, it uses the amplitudes of VEP that depend on gaze direction, and therefore muscles that control the gaze, which are considered. Dependent BCI is an alternative method for detecting the messages carried in natural CNS output. Independent BCI does not depend on natural CNS output. CNS output is the output generated by central nervous system. So these terminologies may look a little difficult for you because you are coming across these terminologies first time. So you can understand what is this independent, what is this dependent, and what is CNS. So when you read about this in a paper, in the literature, again and again, then you'll understand, yeah, CNS is the output because of central nervous system, and the muscle activity is not essential for generating the brain signals that use BCI, that uses this. For example, the BCI is based on EEG sensory motor rhythms, SMR. The user may employ a mental imagery to modify this SMR so to control the BCI output. So this is just introducing the terminology. Later we will discuss little more about these terminologies. There is one more term called as passive BCI, active and passive, where these are applied to use brain signals which are correlated with the user's current state and the level of attention. One example has been given here of passive BCI. BCI detects EEG features. Any BCI, any brain computer interface, what does it do? It detects the EEG features preceding lapses in the attention and produce an output that alerts the user and restore the attention. So what happens whenever the attention was missing, that time the features are extracted, and that is covered in the BCI called as passive BCI. So passive means to differentiate BCI application from those which provide communication and control, where the attention was there, and whenever there is no attention, it that time it was passive control. What are the brain activities? We are mentioning that brain activities are recorded by the brain signal. Again and again, we are saying brain activities are recorded by the brain signal. Just I'll pause for a 30 second. Okay, ठीक है. Okay, all right. So any this is signal processing. We are continuing this one. So this is about brain activities. If you remember, we talked about different types of brain signal, different types of brain activities. Some activities record electrical signal, some activities record magnetic signal. Like that, let us understand about those activities. So there are three types of activities which are recorded from the brain signal in the cognitive and brain computer interface research. One activity is electrical activity. Uh, Let me use the pointer. Yeah, electrical activity. Second is chemical activity. Third is metabolic activity. Of course, electromagnetic activity includes electrical as well as magnetic. So when you say EEG, it records electrical activities. When you say MEG is magnetoencephalograph, that will record magnetic field. And similarly, there are two more called as chemical and metabolic. Let us understand these three activities, how they are recorded from brain: electrical, chemical, and metabolic. So electromagnetic activities resulting in neurons potential as a result of chemical events. So please remember, when you see that there is electrical potential which is recorded, you are recording some signal, some amplitude, some electrical voltage you are recording. So that voltage is recording, and you see outside world that the EEG, I mean brain signal is responding and generating some signal. But inside, what happens? Inside, as a result of chemical events inside the brain, some chemical activities happen between the neurons, between the groups of neurons, some chemical phenomenon, chemical activities happen, and finally it generates some electrical potential outside. So this is how the electrical signal is connected with chemical event in and around the neuron. Look at here, result of chemical events occurring in and around the neuron, isn't it? These are the dendrite and these are the neurons, and between these neurons some chemical phenomenon will have, and finally there will be some electrical signal or magnetic signal which will be generated. Action potentials, those potential or voltages are called as action potentials, and other neuroelectric phenomenon allow electrical measurements such as EEG. EEG, you know that, electroencephalograph. MEG is magnetoencephalograph. Electrocardiography, I have already told you, electrocardiography is ECOG, that is semi-invasive, with microelectrodes implanted in the brain tissue. This microelectrode is nothing but you put your electrode inside the brain tissue. So in any case, the signals are recording either electrical, chemical, or metabolic activities. I have not explained metabolic. Metabolic will come in next slide. That is also very important. So EEG and MEG sensors, the sensors which are related with EEG and MEG are located far from neurons. You have already seen, you wear a cap. So EEG and MEG sensors are very far from neurons. Neurons are inside your brain and do not get precise identification of active brain areas. Hope you understand very well. And it can also be detected by measuring chemical processes by position. See, please try to understand. This EEG is mainly, EEG is related to electrical, MEG is related to magnetic field. But what about chemical particularly? Of course, a voltage is generated because of chemical events occurring inside the brain. But what about purely chemical activity? Look at the next one. Another modality is called as PET. Hope you have heard about this PET. It is called as positron emission tomography. Positron emission tomography. What does it do? It can be detected by measuring chemical processes. By those chemical processes occurring inside the brain can be measured by, can be detected by, what is the name of modality? PET, which involves injection of specially manufactured markers and have poor temporal resolution. Please understand. So what do? Again, you inject some material inside your brain. Those materials are called as markers. You put your markers inside your brain, and those markers will bring some chemical processes with the help of technology called as PET. All right. Due to the limitations of electrical and chemical methods, effort is being made in measuring the metabolic process also. And so let us understand what is metabolic. Hope you understand what is electrical or magnetic. It is related with your EEG and MEG. What about chemical process? It is related with PET. Now the next one is metabolic process. And what is what is metabolic process? That is used to study brain activities involving the utilization of energy. There is a blood flow inside your brain. Hope you understand, maximum amount of energy. What is the organ inside your body that consumes maximum amount of energy? Any idea? You have so many organs, heart,
Was the brain?
of course, of course. I mean, there is a study that says that probably one third or something, one third of total energy you consume. Yeah, I mean, you just please confirm again by searching it. Almost one third of total energy we consume is spent by the brain, and when there is a energy in the brain, the blood circulation is there, and through blood circulation, oxygen levels and the energy is flowing. So utilization of energy, how oxygen level, how energy is being utilized, what is the energy level, what is the oxygen level, those things are also studied, called process, called metabolic processes. So they are also used to study about the brain. When neurons increase, and see how energy is affected, let us understand. I have also included that in my point. When neurons increase their firing rate, what is the firing rate? So many neurons interacting with each other, they are interacting with each other, and they are exciting and stimulating the more and more energy, electrical signal. So the more and more firing is there, they use more energy and energy, more and more energy. Obviously, it's a common sense. More and more interaction, more and more firing, they are colliding and they're producing potential. Whenever that potential, the firing is more and more, the energy will be more. Energy supplied by chemical reaction in and around the neuron will be also more. Hope this is very clear. The increased metabolic activity, now because of that more and more energy, the metabolic activities are increasing. So that increased metabolic activity, it demands for basic fuels of metabolism. You understand it very well, right? If you need more and more energy, what is needed? You need something, some fuel, some energy. So what does it need? It requires glucose, that is sugar, and it requires oxygen. Try to understand. I'm not a person of biology. I'm not a person of, somebody, is attending who is from pharmaceutical biotechnology. Definitely, this might be looking very interesting to you. You must have studied about markers. You must have studied about biomarkers. This is very interesting to you. Probably you may be knowing more than what I am explaining, because I'm not an expert of this metabolism practices. So increased metabolic activities increases the demand for basic fuels of metabolism, and those fuels come from glucose and the oxygen. The change in demand, which demand of basic fuel, the change in demand is detected because it is accompanied by increased blood flow to the region. I hope you are understanding. The more and more pumping is required, more and more amount of glucose and oxygen level are required. Why they are required? To increase the metabolic practices. What is metabolic practices? Try to understand. More and more interaction, more and more firing between the neurons. More is the firing, more energy is required. From where more energy will be required? To pump, to get more oxygen and more blood. That is sugar level, glucose. So how do you get that? You need to increase the blood flow. So all these are interrelated, called as a metabolic activity of the brain. The blood flow in the brain is highly controlled and locally regulated. It acts as a marker for neuronal activities, right? It acts as a neuronal activity. So you look at one picture here. One is the old picture called as electrocardiography, where there is a grid, and where you have put identified some sensory area, you have some motory area, and there is some surgical opening. This is already included in the previous slide. But what is the next one? Can you see here? This is a PET signal. This is the normal brain. This is the brain where Parkinson person is there. Now look at the case. You see here the blood flow level in the normal case. In the Parkinson's, look at the blood flow. So in the Parkinson's, without any treatment, without any cure, see the level of blood flow which is happening, inside the brain. This is the PET. It's a kind of CT scan only, right? And here, when post treatment, again the blood flow is trying to, become normal. So I think when you look at this picture carefully, you might be getting excitement. Oh my God, this area is very exciting. I also can study about Parkinson disease. I can do some research in the area of Parkinson, detection of Parkinson, classification of Parkinson's disease between normal and abnormal. If many people are suffering with Parkinson, what is the level of Parkinson? What kind of abilities are affected by Parkinson? I think you can correlate. So because these are all scientifically, tested methods. So what is needed is signal. The signal may be PET signal, the signal may be CT scan, the signal may be functional MRI, and signal may be your EEG. So this is talking about PET, which records metabolic process. I have explained three processes: electrical, chemical, and metabolic. So EEG analysis, how do we do EEG analysis in BCI? This picture is the not new picture. Again, either the modality is ECOG or EEG, you capture it, you acquire it, you digitize it, you use signal processing. Signal processing will cover in next part of lecture. And then you can control, you can communicate, you can create a stimuli, you can create some signal that can be given to feedback. The applications can be many: environmental control, locomotion control, movement control, neurorehabilitation, and so on. So all these are applications. We can use mathematical signal analysis. We can use computing methods to extract the information from signal. And if a mathematical model is used to the sampled signal, the method can be parametric or non-parametric. We will explain later. Very simple. Parametric means it uses parameters of the signal, some attributes of the signal. Then it is parametric method. Most EEG signals are time domain. So what kind of analysis we do in the EEG signal? We can do time domain analysis, we can do frequency domain analysis, and we can also do time frequency domain analysis and non-linear methods. Right. So, now we are concluding this particular part, which was pending from the last lecture, that is yesterday's lecture. It is just sum up, look at the picture. This is very clear to all of you that how does BCI work. This picture was also included in previous day, that each particular part of the brain is associated with different functionalities. And when you want to use for different applications, maybe healthcare, maybe robotics, maybe smart industries, maybe manufacturing, you can use different parts of brain. You can make use of different functionalities of the brain, and you can develop the system. So this is what is happening in the field of neurocognitive application. So especially the BCI is bringing a lot of technological advancement, bringing a lot of paradigm changes in the area of neurocognitive applications in many domains like what I have mentioned just now. So this is where this particular slide is ending now.